In this video, I'm going to be showing how we can take all the panel designs and the timing project manager definition and actually calculate the timing for our mine. We're going to start with a very simple timing example, just sequencing a few panels, then we'll iterate through the results, getting more and more complex as needed. So we're going to start by going to our underground pull-down menu. We're going to go all the way down to underground timing. Command line will tell us to select any part of the mine plan, so I can pick any one of these panel center lines, doesn't matter which one. Give it a click, and this will actually open up our timing project manager. So this is everything that we covered in the last video. So we do have a chance to go in here and make changes to the equipment, to the calendar, to anything like that that we want to modify just before we actually run the sequencing. So I don't have anything to change here. I'm just going to click OK. And we're going to open up this underground timing dialog. So this is our main dialog that we work with when we're building up these schedules. We have three columns here. We have the equipment involved, which should define all the equipment that we have in the timing project manager. We have the assignment list, which should be empty the first time you run this. And the unassigned column, this will show all the panels in this current mine plan. The idea here is to build up the assignment list in the order that the panels are going to be mined. Now, there's a couple of ways that we can build that assignment list. We could do the very basic method of just finding the panel name in the unassigned list, double click on it, it brings it to the assignment list. That would be perfectly fine if you only had a very small number of panels and the naming convention was very easy to follow. But when you have a larger number of panels and you've got all these numbers and abbreviated names looking at you, it's kind of hard to visualize, into E5. Well, which panel is that? I can't really tell unless I were to, draw some bigger labels and just visualize that. So just picking them off the unassigned list isn't the best. So the main thing that we use here is this screen pick option. So if I click on this button, the window will minimize and we'll actually be able to click inside the panels in the order that we want to mine them. So I can see here that main one panel, it's currently got a color fill. That tells me it's already been assigned to a piece of equipment. So what I'm going to do is click inside of the next panel that I want to mine. It adds a color fill and the command line says that main 2 has been assigned to that unit that I had selected. And I can just start clicking right on down the line here. And again, the reason we're only seeing part of the panel get mined out is because of those pinpoints that we had added in. So that actually subdivides the panel. When I'm done, I press enter, takes me back to the assignment list. And I can see CM1 now has all of those panels assigned to it. Now, if one of those panels were to be out of order, if I had picked one of them just earlier than I should have, I can always move things up and down in the list by picking the panel, using these green arrows, and that will actually change the sequencing in which that panel is mined. For CM number 2, we can do the exact same thing. I'll just do the screen pick option. You can see the panels that have already been selected. And I'm going to tell CM2 to get this submain number 1 panel. And I'll just grab one of those as well. Press enter. And now those have been assigned. Good to go. There are a few other options on here, but for this first run through of the timing, I'm going to keep it very, very simple. So I'm going to go ahead and generate a report of the timing for these panels. I'm going to click on calculate and I get a dialog that pops up saying the mining of the assigned and accessible panels is completed on, and then display the date. And there are two reports that you can use here. You can use the basic report or the detailed. I want to just go ahead and show the basic report. This will open up the report formatter. We'll be talking about all the options for the report formatter. We have other videos for that. But the idea here is we can take anything that we want to see in the available column and put it in the used column. So for right now, I just want to display the unit, start date, finish date, days waiting, and the panel name. Now you'll notice some important information is missing from this available column. We don't see anything about the tonnage or the volume or the quality of the material that we're mining. It's very basic, as the name would imply. So with just this little bit of information, I'm going to click on the display button. And the main thing to note here is that I can see which unit is working, what the start and finish date are, and which panel it's working on. So this is a good way just to check to see where you're going to be and when. However, 99% of the time, I'm not going to use this basic report. I'm going to go ahead and use the detailed report. So I'm going to go ahead and close the report formatter here. And I want to note, in between this, you can constantly update your assignment list. So if I wanted to get another panel assigned here, I can just screen pick another panel, enter, and I can recalculate the schedule. So this time I'm going to calculate again. I can see that the date has updated, and this time I'm going to use the detailed report. This is going to get me a lot more options compared to that basic report. So now we've actually got to define some additional options, whereas the basic report, you just picked what you wanted to report out. This dialog is actually determining how the information is going to be displayed to you for both the text report and for the timing map. Now I'm going to go very, very basic. The first time I do this, I'm going to click this box up here that says report only, and you'll notice that's going to gray out a large portion of the dialog. All those grayed out options are related to the actual timing map. I'm not going to generate that just yet. So up here at the top left, we're first going to see our report periods, and the date range will be set. These dates will be set automatically based on the start date of the mine and the calculated finish date. So we shouldn't have to change those unless you only wanted to report just maybe the first 3 months and then nothing else. You can always change these dates. Just click on the 3 dots and you'll get a calendar. You can pick a date. Now, the way in which we report the timing, we can do this with 3 methods. We can use dates, we can report by amounts, or we can report by equipment. I really think the most common method is just to report by dates, in which you could say, I want to display timing for the month of January, month of February, just tell me what's there. Alternatively, if we reported by amounts, you could say, I don't necessarily care about the dates. I just want to see when do I finish mining my 1 millionth ton and the next million tons. So it will still report some dates, but that's not the main focus. And the last option is just to report by equipment, where you're basically just saying, show me where continuous miner 1 is working. Show me where continuous miner 2 is working. For right now, I'm just going to stick with the dates. And each one of those options has their own table. Now this is a little different than the way that we defined the dates, the amounts, the equipment in previous versions of the software. So this has been given a little bit of a refresh. So now all of our dates are going to be defined through this table. So I'm going to click on this button, and we can see here I do already have some dates defined, but the first time you do this, this dialog is going to be totally empty. So I'm just going to go ahead and clear it out, and that gets rid of any of that information, so we can define this brand new. The idea here is to define the end dates, set a color, set a layer, maybe a label if you like, but punching these in one by one would be very tedious. So most of the time I use this, I'm going to use the auto set button down here at the bottom. When I click on this, I've got a lot of options for how I fill out this table. For the very first time, I'm going to start off on line number 1. The starting date, that's just the start date of my mine, should have been set for me automatically, so I'll keep that. I can specify a hatch scale, a hatch pattern, so you can pick any type of hatch pattern you want for the color map. I'm just going to stick with the solids for all of these. And the hatch scale really isn't that important when we're using a solid hatch, so I'm not going to worry about that. Next thing down, I want to set the layer for my timing map. Again, I'm not going to not going to display the timing map in the first run through, but this will come back later. So I'll turn on set layer, and I can tell the timing map to come out everything on a single layer named mine TM or timing, whatever I like. Or I could also tell the program to just put it on a different layer depending on the year. So I could have a 2021 layer, a 2022 layer. Most of the time though, I like putting everything on a single layer. I'll stick with that default layer name. The next thing down are the color options. So I am going to change the colors. If I had left this turned off, it would just keep any of the colors that are already defined there. But I'm going to turn on the colors. And our older method of setting the colors was to use a color increment. This was the only option that you had in older versions. And with that, you actually had to specify a starting color number, and the color numbers related to this AutoCAD color index, where color 10 was here, color 20 was there. So you would have to pick a starting color and actually pick a color increment. So you'd show color 10, color 20, color 30, which wasn't always the easiest to use. So we've added this new option to define a color palette. And we have a few color palettes predefined here. We have the rainbow palette, we have dark shades, light shades, all shades, every single color that we have. I want to show this dark shades, for example. So I'll stick with that for now, but you can also create your own color palettes. Coming down to the bottom here, you can see the repeat option, and this is going to be a very important one. So we can say, what's the main time period I want to report? So I think the most common one that we'll see is showing monthly by date. So that means every month of production, we're going to see a new color on the timing map. So let's say just for maybe the first 2 years, I want to report this monthly. And after that point, I just want an annual report. So with that in place, I'm going to click OK. And we'll see all the end dates have been generated for us. The range just gives you it's just a different way of interpreting from one end date to the other. So we can see this will go February to March. And we can see all the colors that have been applied there. So that defines the first 2 years. But to pick up after that, if I want to define this on an annual basis, I'm going to come down to the bottom, click on Auto Set again, and I've got to make some changes here. First of all, the starting line needs to go to my first blank line there. So this is going to start on line 25. The starting date is going to be January 1st of 23. So that'll pick up from the previous line. I'm still going to be setting the layer. I'm still going to be setting the colors here. Now, if I like, I can change color palettes, because if I start this over, it's just going to restart the color palette starting on color red. But I could also pick another color palette here. So maybe for the annual years, if I didn't want to do such a gradual transition, if I wanted something that was a little sharper between the years, I can add my own color palette. So I'm going to click Add. The palette name, I'll just call it Custom. And then I can pick a few colors in there. Let's just do maybe for the next 10 years. So the first color, I'll stick with that red. For the second color, just give it a double click. I'll go with this orange. And I can just go right down the line there, picking any of the colors that I like. One more in there, and I'll remove it. So I've got those 9 colors defined. It's all well and good. And if I define more than 9 years of production, this color palette will just recycle. So I'll say OK there, and I'll tell it I want to use that custom color palette. It's all good. This time for the repeat, I'm going to tell this to repeat yearly. And I'll let this cycle out for a very long time. So I'll say just for the next 50 years, just so it populates the table. Say OK. And when I start scrolling down, I can see my years of production going down the line there. And it's just going to cycle through those colors over and over again. So you can find that table however you like. Got a lot of different options there. And this is another file that I do like to save out this custom date table. So I'll just call this my custom date table. Save it. Just a good one to hold on to. And we'll say OK. So that'll define our dates. Let's see, there's a few other options here. I'm not going to cover all of these, but we'll skip down. I'm ignoring anything that's in gray. I'm not going to output our spatial database, and I'm not going to skip the report formatter. So here I'm just going to click OK. And the program is going to calculate through there, and it's going to get us back to the report formatter. So let's take a look at some of the things we might want to report here. I am going to start totally fresh. I'm going to clear out this used column. And I'm just going to pick the items that I really want to see over here on the left. Now it's important to note that the report formatter will sort by the uppermost attribute. So if I, for example, if I pick on my period, it's just going to sort everything by the time periods. If I had picked by equipment, this would sort by equipment instead of date. So this would show everything for continuous minor 1, then everything for continuous minor 2. But for now, we'll stick with period. We could play around with those if we want. So I'll show the period. I want to show the equipment that's working. I'm going to show the panel name that it's working on. And let's just get some really basics. Let's show the key tonnage that it's going to mine out. Also going to show the non-key tonnage. And we can also see our quality attributes on here. So let's get all of those. Get those added in. And that'll be good. Let's just do it that basic report for now. I'm going to come down here and click on display. And here I can see starting date, ending date for each piece of equipment, where it's going to be, and it's just going to cycle down through those. So very, very basic text report. Lets us know where we're at. Exit out of that. Going to exit out of here. And it's going to take us back to the main timing dialog. Now, after calculating an initial timing assignment, you'll notice that some of these buttons down at the bottom are no longer grayed out. So our events report, our monthly report, our Gantt chart, all of these become available after our initial calculation. So these are some other tools that you may want to use. Let's just take a look at our Gantt chart, for example. If I click on this, we'll go ahead and just add all of these additional fields so we see absolutely everything in the Gantt chart. I'll click on display. And this is just another way to visualize the timing. So we can see the unit listed here, unit listed here, and then the panels in the order that they're going to be mined. Now right now I'm looking at a daily report, but it can be helpful to maybe look at a weekly or even a monthly report. And we could just very quickly see which panel is being worked on and when. So just another tool we can use to visualize the timing. Enough with that. And now let's take a little more detailed look at the timing. I'm going to click on calculate again, get the same date popping up. I'm going to do another detailed report, but this time I don't want to just generate the text report. I want to actually generate a timing map. So I'm going to turn off this option, and I see all these other options are now active. I can work with these. So what we're going to do, we're starting the draw options. I'm going to say yes, I want to draw the legend, just a legend of that date table. I'll usually start with the size of 100, but you can always scale that up later on if needed. The next option here, the black-white outline, if we turn this on, every single panel will have a black outline or a white outline, just depending on your background color. If you turn that option off, the outlines around the panels will be the same as the time period. Very small thing, but I do like to turn this on. I think it just makes the outlines of each time period pop a little better. For the text block to label, so each of these time periods can have a label on it, things that would just show the actual dates in which that portion of the panel was mined, or you can create custom text blocks. For right now, I'm just going to tell it to draw the actual dates. And the text size for those labels, I like to use the text auto size. That just ensures that the text doesn't spill out of the boundary. Should be readable. Use a standard text style, that's fine. The lengthwise labels, that'll just rotate the labels 90 degrees. So I'm not going to worry about that. And next we'll take a look at our hatch options. I am going to actually draw the hatch here. Notice I have the option to specify a retreat hatch. The advanced hatch was actually defined in the dates table. So that hatch pattern there, that's what's going to be used. Now in this drawing, I don't actually have any retreat panels, so it really doesn't matter what this retreat hatch is set to. No need to worry about that. The hatch transparency, I'm going to leave this set to bilayer for the moment, but I do normally like to enable some hatch transparency so you can see the line work and the labels underneath the hatches. And I'm just going to say OK. Now the timing hasn't run yet. My command line tells me to pick a location for the legend. So I'm just going to put my legend somewhere off to the side here. I'm going to click. And once I do that, the timing will calculate and we'll see our timing legend or our timing areas be drawn in for us. We can see the legend popping in there. And it just takes us back to the same report formatter that we saw before. So nothing has really changed in this report formatter. So I'm just going to click on exit. Takes me back to the underground timing dialog. And here I'm just going to click on done. So now I can inspect my timing map a little bit better. So I can see that it has actually subdivided the panels. This is our full main one panel area. And we can see because I'm trying to report monthly, just the first month is drawn out here with this red color. We can see the dates, we can see which piece of equipment's actually mining that out. And if we just go around down the line there, that'll repeat, and it's following the color legend that we specified here. I just do want to point out, you'll notice that Continuous Miner 2 did not start until 3/4, whereas Continuous Miner 1 actually started on January 1st. That's because of those precedence rules we had previously defined. So if you want to inspect those and check those out, you can always change them with the edit panel command. We talked about that in a previous video. And if you pick on the center line there, I'll see the reason here that this was delayed is because this panel cannot start until we complete mining of main 2 beginning to the first pinpoint. So those automatic delays are taken care of, and as we add additional precedence rules, we don't have to worry about manually delaying the start date. So it's a good way to just ensure that you don't mine anything before you can physically access it. So that's all well and good, but there might be some things that I want to change here. So for example, right now I'm just seeing the dates on these panels, but maybe I want some additional information. Maybe I actually want to know what's the actual tonnage for that section of the panel. What is the BTU quality for that section of the panel? Things like that. Those are all things we can actually add as a text block. Something else I may want to do is change the hatch transparency. So right now, all I can see is the text and the hatch. I can't actually see any of the line work underneath it, which could be helpful. So I just want to apply those two changes, and we'll iterate and redraw this map. Now, when I'm ready to generate a new timing map, it's important that I first clear out the old timing map. Now, a quick way to do that, we could of course just undo, hit Control-Z a few times to back up, but maybe that's not feasible. Maybe we've done some additional work, we've drawn some new things in, hitting Control-Z is not going to be the best movement. So a quick way to clear out this timing map, if we go to the underground pull-down menu, all the way down at the bottom, we see clear timing map. I'm going to click on that, and I'm prompted if I want to remove the coloring for just the advanced panels or just the retreat panels or both. I'm pretty much always going to use the both option. So I'm going to click on that. I'm told to select parts of the mine plan to have the timing color removed. So I'm just going to get a big window around everything there, press enter, and it clears them out. So I don't have to individually select those hatches and clear them. Now you'll notice it does not delete the legend, so that will remain in place in case you want to keep it as is. But I'm going to go ahead and wipe it out because this only got us through November 21. So if I add more panels, that legend itself is not going to cover all the dates. So I'm going to delete that. So now let's repeat our timing. So I'm going to go back to underground timing. Pick on any one of those mine panel center lines. Click OK. And now I can regenerate my report. So I'm going to click on calculate. I'm going to click on detailed report. And let's make a couple of changes here. So first of all, I want to change up the text block that I'm using. I'm not going to draw the actual dates. I'm going to use this use custom text block option. Now I've already got a couple of options in here, or a couple of text blocks already defined. I'm going to add a new one. So I'm going to punch this in. I'm going to say this is going to be example 3. Click OK. This dialog pops up, and I've got all the predefined keys over here on the left that I can use for reporting. So the first thing I'm going to add is our equipment. So I'm going to highlight equipment, click on add, and maybe the next thing I want to see is the start date. Now I can actually put multiple attributes on the same line, but I don't think that's going to look as clean. So before I add another attribute, I'm going to click add new line. That drops it down, and now I can find the attribute I want to add, which in this case is my start date. So what I'm going to do here, I'll add start, click add. That's good. I'll add another new line. I'll call this finish. And now let's just add in the key tons. So this is actually an attribute called key weight. Now if I add in key weight, it's very simply going to display the number. It's not going to have a prefix or a suffix telling me what it actually is. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to add text. I'm going to say this is my key tons, put a space at the end, click OK. And then I'll add in that key weight attribute just so it'll have a little label in front of it. That'll work out. Now if I also wanted to report a quality attribute, such as my BTU, I'm going to click add attribute. I'll enter the name of the attribute exactly as I defined it in my attribute groups. In my case, it's just BTU. I'll click OK. Oh, actually, didn't put that on the right line, so let's remove that. Okay, so with that in place, I'm just going to click OK. So that'll use our custom text block, but I do need to make sure that I select example 3. And the other option I wanted to change was the hatch transparency. So I'll set this to maybe 50%. I'll click OK, pick a location for my legend. It'll draw that in. I'm going to exit out of the report, click done. And we'll see how that looks a little bit different. So now I can see the start date, end date on separate lines. I can see my key tonnage, and I've got my BTU value on there. Of course, I could add a label prefix or suffix. This just shows why it's important to have those prefixes. So the next person that sees this map will know exactly what that attribute is. And that'll work out. For the next iteration here, I want to increase the complexity of the mine plan a little bit. First of all, I'm going to actually mine through the entire mine plan, but I also want to show how we can introduce some delays, and I also want to be able to report by property boundary. So the first thing I'm going to do here, let's just go ahead and clear out our timing map. So we'll go back to underground, clear timing map, both, select all the mine plan, clear that out. So I do already have a layer here for property lines. Now a property line is nothing more than a closed polyline that has actually been tagged. So these have already been tagged, but if you need to create one, just quickly show this off to the side here. Let's make a closed polyline, and on the property pull down, the first command there for assign property names. You can pick on the polyline, give it an owner name, so that's Mr. Johnson. Property ID is 123, and that polyline is closed. There, it's been tagged. So that's something we could just overlay on the panels, and we could report by those property lines. So with that layer turned on, I'm going to repeat my timing command. Go to the underground timing, pick on any portion of the mine plan. And here I've actually already got a assignment list that will mine through the entire mine plan. So I'm just going to load up that assignment list. It'll ask if I want to overwrite my assignment. I'll say yes to that. And I can see all the panels have been assigned here. There's nothing remaining in the unassigned column. So that'll get the entire plan. I do want to quickly just talk about adding in delays, however. So if I take a look at main 2, assigned to this first continuous miner, before that backs up and starts on submain number 2, maybe there's some type of delay that I need to introduce. Maybe it's going to be maintenance, maybe there's some equipment needs to be moved, whatever it might be. I can manually insert a delay here by highlighting a panel. I can click add delay, and I can say I want to delay that equipment for, let's say, 2 days. There are 4 options down here. We could say that's a pure calendar delay. So regardless of what my working calendar says, 2 days after we get to this point in the mine, I'm free to start mining this. The other option for an as scheduled delay, that will account for downtime already on the calendar. So for example, if you're not working Saturday and Sunday, and we know we're going to have a 2-day delay in here, a scheduled delay, let's say we got to here on Friday, well, Saturday and Sunday don't count towards a scheduled delay, so it would take off Monday and Tuesday, and it could pick up on Wednesday. So that's what the pure calendar delay and the as scheduled delay are referring to. There are 2 other options on here for the delays. I'm not going to talk about the after present satisfied option. We'll just stick with a scheduled delay here. So I'm just going to click OK, and that'll just delay the equipment by a couple of days. Very easy to work with. If you need to change those delays, you can just double click, brings up the edit dialog. Okay, so what we'll do now is we are going to calculate our timing. And we're going to run a detailed report. And to account for the property lines, we're just going to turn on this option up here to subdivide by property lines. That's all we'll need to do. And we are going to click OK. Put our legend over here off to the side. Okay, and that's generated our timing map, and we have our text report here. And in the text report, we will now have access to the owner and the property attributes. So I might want to stick these in after the panel name. I can display the results, and now I can see line by line, date by date, which property line we're on, and how many tons of each type of material we're pulling out. So that can be a really good way to calculate your royalty, dues, anything like that. All right, so that accounts for our property. I'm going to say exit here, I'm going to say done. And just looking at our timing map, I can see that the color that I've assigned to these panels, well, when I was going from a monthly report to an annual report, I didn't really pick a good color change, because I've got a red down here in 2023, but that's pretty much the same as what I'm seeing in early 21. So I'm just not a big fan of that color choice. So what I'm going to do is go back, modify my colors, and give something that more clearly defines 2023, 24, and 25. Now, something else that I want to discuss is as the mine actually progresses. So we can see here, this is everything that I'm expecting to mine out in the first month. Well, let's say we get through the month of January and for one reason or another, we only got to about here. And we want to recalculate the timing as if we were to basically have everything up to this point mined out, but starting on February 1st. We don't have to delete this panel. We don't have to modify the original line work, but we can set a current position in the mine to account for that change. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to underground. First of all, I'm going to clear my timing map. Pick all those panels, delete the legend because it's going to change. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my current position. Now that line is actually just there for visual. I'll leave that in place, but wait in a moment. I'm going to go back to the underground pull down and I can see set current position. And I'll say this is a current stage panel development on the advance. And this is where I'm going to pick on the panel. Let's say, again, I've done my first month of mining and I only got up to about right there. Can now delete that construction line. So that tells the program that everything behind that line has already been mined out. So what I'll do now is run the timing again. I'll update my mine start date and we'll see our timing map change. And again, I'm also going to change my color palette. So I'm going to go back to the underground pull down, underground timing, pick on any portion of the mine plan. And here I'm going to change my mine start date. So I'm not starting in January now. I'm going to say I'm starting on February 1st. Click OK. Going to calculate. Click on detailed report. And again, I want to change the colors that I've assigned to the annual dates. So I'm going to go back to my dates table here, and I can see where this is where my colors are getting recycled. Without wiping this whole thing out, I'm just going to change a few of these. So I'll start in maybe on a blue color there. Get maybe a darker blue, something like that, and that should do. So I'll just do a quick spot replacement there. Say OK. Say OK again. Draw my legend out here. And there we go. Okay. Now if I clear out of there, now we can see that first month or so development, it's no longer part of the timing map because that's now in the past. We can see the timing picks up where we left off, and I can also see that my color maps are much easier to read now. It's easier to see that continuation of the color palette. So now that we've created a timing map, I'm just going to go to my view pull down. I'm going to freeze a few layers by picking on them so we can just show the timing there. There we go. So now we have a very detailed timing map with plenty of information. This map is now ready to be plotted out. And this just gives a quick overview of the underground timing command. This concludes the overview of the underground mining module. If you have any questions, you have a variety of ways to contact us. You can reach our main office at 606-564-5028. You can contact me directly at tfaulkner@carlsonsw.com, or you can use any of the other support lines listed here for additional help. Thank you for your time, and we hope you enjoy using the software.